So my guest today will be talking about business development and finding data providers and how you would go about doing that. And so on my ramble today, I figured I would talk a little bit about data providers from my perspective. I've been working with data providers, and I've been a data provider for the better part of a decade now, mostly at Intrinio. And along the way, we get asked the same kinds of questions all the time. Like, why would we go through a data provider? Aren't they just a middleman? Why not go to the source directly ourselves? Or, like, what is the difference between data providers? There are just tons of choices out there. I can think of 6 different marketplaces of data. There's big fish like Amazon and Snowflake that have their own data marketplaces and are focusing on fintech now. There's a lot of smaller players out there, medium players. You've got IEX Cloud, NASDAQ and Quandl teamed up, launched a cloud. Refinitive's over at LSE now, London Stock Exchange. There's other providers, Ignite, all over the place, Polygon. And Intrinio. So what's the difference between all these different providers? Why would you need one? What's a good provider? What's a bad provider? And I'll just start with one word in a data provider, and it's dependability. So everything that I'm going to talk about today, all the different reasons why you would go with a data provider, they get to dependability. And the first place where dependability matters is the answer to the question, why even get a data provider? Why not do it yourself? So Intrinio specializes in U.S. fundamentals data, both standardized and as reported. That's open source data. You can just go get it from the SEC's website. It's publicly available and it's free. If you have a server, you got to pay for it to go scrape and pull that data down, but the SEC has tools to allow you to do that because you're supposed to. So why not just go do it yourself? It'd be free. Why pay someone for that data that's publicly available? And for SEC data, the answer to that question is dependability. If you get the data from the SEC, what happens if the SEC changes things on you, which they do on a very regular basis? They might change how the data is accessed. They might throttle you so you can't get the data anymore. They might change a URL. Different companies' data might be filed differently on the SEC website, and these changes are happening all the time. So you could go out and you could start scraping, say, 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 companies' data from the SEC, but with that many companies and the SEC not charging you, giving it away for free, they're going to change things on a daily basis. So maybe not every day a company makes a change to how its data can be accessed at the SEC, but every few years for most companies. And so what that amounts to are lots and lots of changes. So the code that you go and write to pull that data down is going to break. It's going to break on a very regular basis. It's not going to be dependable. Your server maintenance might go down. The SEC might cut you off, throttle you, change their rules for how that's accessed. It actually becomes kind of a full-time job just to get that data. And you need to hire someone. Okay, well now how much are you going to pay that person to dependably and reliably get the fundamentals? Intrinio has a team that does this. And using fundamentals as an example, you can quickly see how you actually aren't going to save any money if you go and get that data yourself straight from the source. The same is true pretty much regardless of the data source. If your business depends on that data, you need someone there to make sure that that data is dependable. Some sources are more dependable, some are less, but none of them are perfectly dependable. So unless you have someone on your staff who at 1 a.m. can get alerted, hey, our data stopped coming in, your platform might go offline. Unless you have someone that sits between you and the data, whose job it is to make sure that that data stays online and that that data is dependably available for you. So that's a question we get all the time because we provide SEC data. But you might be looking for stock prices or real-time data from an exchange, and the same thing applies. You can go to the data center where a stock exchange whose data you want is located. You can physically put a server in there and connect it to yours. And now you're not paying a middleman, but now you got to go maintain that server when it goes offline. You got to buy the server. You got to make sure that it's plugged in and dusted off and someone's put gas in it. So it's pretty easy to see why you would want to choose a data provider, unless your business is gathering data, unless you want to be a data provider yourself, in which case I'll see in a decade you'll be like me, your hair will be going gray, and you'll be worrying about all the data that's out there. So first piece of advice I could give you if your business needs data, work with a data provider. The small fees that they charge you, or the monthly fees or the annual fees, are well worth it, because the alternative is to hire a dev. So speaking of devs, let's talk about, once you get connected to that data provider, onboarding the data. You are going to be building some app or platform or tool for your company, tool for your users, some sort of tool, maybe even for yourself. And you're going to go to that data provider and you're going to get that data from them that you're paying them to license and to maintain for you, to make it available and all that. So immediately you're 10 steps ahead, because you have that data provider. They're going to give you the data in some nice, easy to access format. Now what? You have to integrate it into your system. And that in itself is a big job. Data providers, if they're good, will provide software development kits, documentation. Intrinio provides bulk downloads, Snowflake access, FTP, Amazon access. We work with partners, so you can get our data in a lot of ways. Maybe you want it as a CSV download, or you want it as a REST API or streaming API. A good data provider will have lots of access methods, because if you have to go to an access method that is outside of what you're comfortable with, what your team can do, what works best for you, it's very expensive. You got to build something new. And the main cost that goes into onboarding a data set is in that developer, that expert that you have either on your team or hired to integrate that data into whatever system you're using to bring it into your database or display it on your website. There's someone who builds that connection to the data provider. And oftentimes, and actually almost always in my experience, that person and having them on your team is more expensive than the data itself. So if it takes a long time for that person to do the integration, there's a lot of waiting, back and forth, hemming and hawing, something doesn't work right, you're actually spending more money having that person do the integration than for the data itself. That's a problem. It slows down the launch of your business. So one thing that I would recommend in a data provider is talking to them about their onboarding process. What we do is we assign a developer, a sales engineer, account manager, and salesperson all to your account. And that developer can get on the phone with you, even on a Zoom call, and go through and show you how to connect, make sure that it's working, answer your questions that your developer has, and do it in real time, either on the phone, text message, chat. We have all kinds of ways that you can talk to our team. And we do that because we know that one of the biggest costs is that integration. So something to consider in cars, they call that total cost of ownership. It's not just the cost to buy the data or the cost to buy the car. It's also the oil changes, the maintenance, insurance, all these other things that go into using that car or using data in our case. And onboarding is actually, in the first year or two, usually the biggest expense. So work with a provider that can make that easier for you, and it'll actually save you money in the long run. A good example of that is like with our data. You can query our data repeatedly. You can query like a REST API over and over, or you could update the data every 5 minutes, say. But if that data only updates daily, updating it every 5 minutes doesn't get you anywhere. It just costs. It costs you money to transfer data, to make the queries, to run your servers, and our team can actually help you and advise you, oh, when should I be updating this? How often? What's the most efficient way to architect it? And that'll cut down the total cost of ownership of that data set that you want to use for years to come. So the next thing that I'll mention about working with a data provider is support. There's a lot of platforms out there that are self-service, and that's great. You can sign up and take a trial and buy something without talking to anyone, which if you're a developer might be stressful or scary if you've been quarantined for the last couple of years. And a lot of the time people love that. They love the speed of that. And we used to only do that at Intrinio. We used to allow you to self-sign up, and you could just buy your data subscription in a checkout kind of format. But Usually when a data provider is doing something like that, allowing self sign up, they're betting that they can sign up thousands of customers, which is great. You're going for this big scale, lower price, low friction, get this big ecosystem of all these people using your data. And we used to be like that, so I know why you would think that. It's like, wow, we're going to be the winning provider, we're going to be the unicorn, everyone's going to want to buy data from us, we're going to serve everyone and democratize the data, get it in everyone's hands. That's great if your data is perfect and everything goes perfectly for your users. If your users are businesses, though, and they run into problems, you are kind of out of luck, because usually when you go for big scale, like a big cloud platform, like some of the ones that are available now, and you have thousands and thousands of customers, those customers aren't going to be able to file tickets. They're not going to be able to chat with the support specialist. They're not going to be able to call, for God's sakes, and talk to a real human being. No way. It would never work, because you'd get so many phone calls that you'd have to raise your prices. And so one piece of advice that I would have for data buyers that are looking to work with a partner is to find out how their support system works. Do they have thousands of customers or hundreds? If they have thousands, and your problems that you might have with the data, whether it's data quality, connection, uptime, anything like that, your problems aren't going to be really a priority. You're going to get directed to like a knowledge base with articles, like help articles that you can read and support yourself, or maybe there's a community and other users are supporting you. It'd be like if all the people going to get an oil change decided they were going to do the oil change in the lobby there together. Well, they're not really the experts. They've got their own problems. So one thing that I would advise strongly is going with a data provider that actually supports the data. And what do you need support for? It's data quality errors. Maybe there's a problem in the data or you have a question about the data. How is this calculated? When does this update? Those are common questions regardless of the data provider, regardless of the data quality, that you're going to run into, is that there are issues. Or maybe your connection goes down, or something changes, or you're a little bit lost and you have these kinds of issues. That's what support's for. It's there to make it so that you're not spending a lot of time trying to figure things out. You can talk to an expert who can help you and keep your business running, because your business isn't being a data provider. It's not collecting that data, cleaning it, answering questions about it. Your business is something else that you need that data for, and you should be focusing there. If you have that support, you can focus there. You can focus on customer acquisition, how you display that data, innovative designs, innovative investment strategies, whatever it is. But if you're trying to figure out support, you're less likely to be successful. So I would go with a platform that provides that support and test it. Just send in a ticket while you're on your free trial, or talk to their chat, or say to your salesperson, can I get your cell phone number? And send them a text message. I love helping customers over text, because it's not distracting. You can actually give them a hand, and we do a lot of that in Intrinio, because we know that your problems are emergencies to you, and so we try to treat them like emergencies to us as well. The last thing I'll talk about when choosing a data provider is account management. When I started out in the data business, I didn't really think account management was a thing for data. Like, why would I need an account manager? And the reason why you need an account manager from a customer standpoint is because all this stuff, onboarding the data, filing tickets, asking about the dependability of the data, talking to a developer. These are usually different departments at the data provider. And in Intrinio, we have a support department, we have a data quality department, we have a development department, sales department. Maybe you have questions about new data sets you want to add. Well, that's too much for me to navigate as a customer. So what your account management professional does is they help you navigate the infrastructure of the data provider you're working with. So you have one person to ask for help instead of trying to figure out, I should be talking to all of these different people. And from the business standpoint at Intrinio, having account management is helpful, because that account manager is always on the lookout for when customers need new data sets, because it's an opportunity for us to add new data for that customer and start the whole process over again from the beginning of looking for data from a data provider. And that whole process in and of itself, searching for a data provider is exhausting. If you've ever done it, you've come across, there's all these different data providers and solutions and platforms out there. Maybe my account manager can help me navigate all of that because they've been doing it for years. And my business and my expertise isn't in searching through different marketplaces and trying to figure out how good these different providers are. My business is something else. It's, processing or investing or whatever it is. An account manager can help you to say, all right, let's go. I need this type of data. Who do you recommend I talk to? Where should I go? Can you do it? Can someone else do it? Who should I avoid? What would be a good source of that data? So that's all about picking data providers and why you should be focused on dependability in those data providers. You aren't a data provider yourself. Don't try to be one, and look for a data provider who can get rid of that initial processing burden from your company, help you onboard the data more efficiently, and support you as you go through that process with ticketing, chat, calls, whatever support mechanism works for you. And then also try to find one that has account management, because they're going to make your life a lot easier and eventually let you focus on building whatever it is you set out to build when you decided you needed data.